How can a child save us all if he's sentenced to die? Tell me, Nikolaos. Tell me before you let our son go.
Where we begin does not define who we will become. Before you, I see a path. Built by friendship and family, love and loss, war and bloodshed.
You were sent by the gods to protect this world.
You carry the blade of Leonidas. Act like it. As you write your odyssey across the mountains and the seas, remember, the fate of Greece journeys with you.
Well, what a trailer that was. What a trailer that was. Hello, everybody. Welcome back after a long hiatus to the Assassin's Creed Ranked series. I am Raven, and I'm joined with my brother Lark.
Hello there.
We are about to talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the second in the RPG line of Assassin's Creed. We recently did, well, not recently, but the last time we did Origins. And if we can really describe Odyssey as anything from playing through it and looking at it, I think you said it best, Lark. Origins crawled so Odyssey could run, you know, like along those lines. Because if you really look at it, Odyssey did pretty much everything Origins did, but fixed a lot of the bugs and problems with Origins. But does that mean it's good? Does that mean it's the best game out there? How does it rank? Let's dive right into it. Now, I'll go ahead and give you full disclosure. I started playing this game, but ran into too many things going on, had to pull back and let Lark do it, because Lark loves this game, so he did not mind a bit. Don't worry, we'll both be tackling Valhalla when we get to it. I'll be playing some of it, Lark will be playing some of it, we're going to tag team it. But, enough about that, let's get into the discussion. So, Lark, since you were the one who played it, why don't you give us, first of all, your thoughts, briefly, and then tell us basically what the game is about.
Okay, well, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I would just like to say that overall, from the day one when I first played this game, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. There was very seldom a time, actually, there was no time where I'm like, man, I'm bored. Right? I don't know what to do. It's like, there are a few parts of the game that could frustrate me, but in comparison to, say, other Assassin's Creed games, it's no contest. This game is... I think probably, spoilers, probably out of the RPG style ones, my favorite. However, if you've watched my Lamentations, you already know that, my opinion on that. But to sum it up, what's it about? It's basically about a Spartan Crimson, basically a boy yeeted off of Mount Taygetos.
Father!
Kill him.
No, my baby!
Kill him now.
Alexios!
Do it.
Alexios!
You did well.
Who is basically trying to find his way in the Greek world and basically redeem himself and reunite his family and stop the threat that's basically lurking under the Greek world and threatening everybody.
So what we really have here is, one of the unique things about this game is it's the first game in the Assassin's Creed series where you kind of get to choose whether you play as a girl or a boy. But I think they did it in a very creative way here. The last time they did this was with Syndicate, but they kind of balanced it out between this brother and sister relationship where you could swap characters. Here, no, you start the game by choosing who you're going to be for the run through. You're either going to play as Alexios, the male character, or Cassandra, the female character. And whoever you did not choose will end up playing a antagonist role for you in the game later on, which kind of leads to a lot of good family dynamic, in my opinion, a lot of good conflict for your character. So I definitely really like that. And I think I gotta say that, and here's the thing. I usually play Cassandra because Lark usually plays Alexios. We like to see how different voice lines go, different interactions go based on which one you choose. And Lark, I think you said it best. You like to play as Alexios because the voice actress for Cassandra has a better range on her, so she's good at being the protagonist or being Deimos. So
yeah, so I initially picked Alexios just because I want to play as the male character, and also that was the one in all the promotional trailers. So
yeah, we'll talk about that.
yeah, we'll get to that. I think we'll get that when we get to what do we say, character or story.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to character.
Anyway, so I picked Alexios, and I ran with him, and it wasn't until I really didn't see Cassandra in the role until I started watching you play through. And when I saw you play through, and I saw Alexios come out as Deimos, which is the title for the bad sibling, I was like, he's way too hammy for me.
Yeah.
Not that Cassandra Deimos wasn't over the top, but she was a little bit more...
She came off as more intimidating, where Alexios came off as more, you're fun.
You seem like over-the-top, gruff bad guy, but I don't know, there seemed to be... I just feel like Cassandra did a better job in the role of Deimos than Alexios did.
Well, all right. Well, we've done enough preamble. Let's go ahead and get this started. Where would you like to start today, Lark?
I might as well start where we typically start in that story.
For those of you who don't know how we basically rank these Assassin's Creed games, you might be new to this, so we'll explain it to you. We kind of forgot. It's been a while since we did this. Bear with us, guys. We grade this on 4 criteria. We look at it in terms of history, because these are history games. How good is the history? We look at it in terms of story. The story that you're going on. Is it engaging? Is it fun? Is it well written? We do it in terms of characters. Basically, are the characters likable? Are the characters well written? Are the characters enjoyable? Do they have good progression? And then finally, we look at gameplay itself. Is it just a fun game to play? Does it play well? Is it buggy? That kind of thing. So, looking at... you wanted to look at history first?
A story.
Story, I'm sorry. So, story first. The basic premise of the story, I think we've touched on it, but to give it a little bit more detail, the setup is you are either Alexios or Cassandra, since you mostly played Alexios.
We'll call it Eagle Bear for sake.
Eagle Bear, that's a good idea. So you're playing as Eagle Bear, and Eagle Bear is this Spartan child who was cast off of the mountain, like you said, because of an issue with his family. Now you've been living on this bum, out of the way, nowhere.
Kefalonia.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much out of the way of nowhere. Kefalonia, where you've grown up as a Misthios, which is a bounty hunter or mercenary. And now you find out some tidbits about your family history that could allow you to get some closure. So you leave Kefalonia to go and find these secrets about your family, and along the way you discover that they have actually been targeted by a cult called the Cult of Cosmos.
Which is a delightful bit of ham and cheese.
Oh yes, that we'll get to them for sure. And as you go along, you discover that the Cult of Cosmos not only want to destroy your family, but they have manipulated your own sibling, depending on who you play, to become their secret weapon of destruction. But why? Why? Because your family lineage have special abilities. They want to capture or kill your family so that their dastardly plans can come through. They've infiltrated every level of Greek society, from the highest positions in the government to the lowest slaves. You know, like they are just everywhere. And part of the game, a major part of the game, is going around and killing all of them, discovering what it is about your family that's so damn special, finding your mother, finding who your father is, trying to somehow redeem and save your sibling. Along the way, you're just doing everything you can to fix the Greek world. Now, we could talk to you about the story of what's going on outside the Animus too, but no one cares. Like, legitimately no one cares.
And it's also kind of clear. I think Ubisoft, at least in this one, sort of knew you didn't care, because it is mercifully short. Literally, when you jump out of the Animus 3 times, once to just establish, oh, by the way, there's still an Animus, and I'm like,
yeah, great.
great. And the second time, so you can go to Atlantis. More on that later. And the third time is for the ending where the Eagle Bearer, whoever you choose, shows up and says, "You truly are the Mary Sue of prophecy."
We'll get to that. Oh
Anyway,
my god.
so-
So first, let's just talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff about the story.
So, good stuff is, as you said, you start out on Kefalonia after you sort of got yeeted off of a mountain. You grow up there, you make some friends and family, until one of the cult members actually shows up and starts asking a job of you. You do a few jobs for him, and then he says, "Okay, I want you to go and kill a Spartan general." You say, "Okay," only to find out the Spartan general that you're supposed to kill is your adoptive father. Now, here's the interesting thing about the story. You get to choose a lot of where things go, and that what you choose does have a large impact.
Right.
Like, for example, when you get to finally confront your adoptive father, Nikolaos, you can choose to kill him, or you can choose to spare him. And that obviously has some repercussions for how the rest of the game goes. We both chose to spare him, but because I can't be AI Lark at all times.
Yeah.
But we spare him, and then it's from there that we go on to try and find out that, hey, the guy that hired you, Elpenor, is actually a cult member, and you realize you meet Herodotus at the Pythia, and you start to realize, oh crap, this cult has its hands in everything, and that's when you meet your sister or brother again to realize, oh, we are up Schitt's Creek right now. Things are really bad. And then from there, you go to all sorts of places. You go to Athens, you go to Sparta, you go to all of these famous places in the Greek world to try and just undo the corruption that the cult has caused.
Right.
Because they're just doing all sorts of crazy nonsense. Along the way, you re-find your mother, who is ecstatic to have you and tries to convince you to save your sibling. You also meet several other great historical characters, which we'll go over in greater detail in character, like Pericles, Brasidas, the Aspasia, more on that later, Socrates, who was really fun, by the way. And you just go through, you basically get a good tour of the Greek world throughout this. You also meet up with everyone's favorite captain,
Barnabas.
Barnabas is your sort of ship co-pilot who helps you take your I know it's not a trireme, but I can't think of the actual classification, and you go around and you basically get to go around and have fun on the high seas, sinking cultists along the way.
Right.
Eventually, though, you're going to eradicate all the cultists, and you'll get to choose whether you get to save your sister or not. That's entirely up to you. You better make the right choices, though. And you get to save your sister or put him down, but anyway, the cult's influence is completely destroyed, and you have to go and meet your father, your actual father, who happens to be Pythagoras. No, I don't know why they chose him. And he is guarding Atlantis, and he says, you gotta go and you gotta find 4 artifacts so we can permanently seal Atlantis so that no one can touch it, because, I don't know, I guess he didn't like the Disney movie. I enjoyed it, for one, but anyway, you go off, and guarding these things are 4 mythical creatures. You have the Cyclops, the Sphinx, the Minotaur, and Medusa. All of which are actually illusions created by the Piece of Eden, but you still got to fight them because they're still very much real and cause real problems. But some of them can be fun fights. I enjoyed fighting the Minotaur and the Cyclops; those were enjoyable fights. The Sphinx is actually clever because you can actually
That might need to wait for gameplay.
Yeah, we'll wait for gameplay. But anyway, you beat them, you get their Pieces of Eden, you go back, you seal it in, and then a Isu, or precursor, that actually likes the humans and thinks you're just the best, but can't handle our superior technology, basically says, yay, by the way, I'm going to speak for you just like like someone else did with Ezio, and no one really cares. Eventually you have to talk to your father to say, hey, we got to seal up Atlantis, and Pythagoras is like, no, but if we do that and I give up the staff, I'll die, and he's like, sorry, old man. Times are changing. And so Pythagoras goes, fine, okay, here you go, champ. This is your burden now. And then he pieces out and dies. Then we do have to jump back out to the Animus, where Mary Sue, I legitimately can't remember her name right now.
Who cares about her name?
But Mary Sue is confronted by Alexios or Cassandra, whoever you chose, and basically they say, you are the one from prophecy. You are so special. You're going to be the one to unseal Atlantis. And what does she do with it? I don't know. But then she hands over the Staff of Hermes, which basically has been keeping the Eagle Bearer alive for literally thousands of years. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot that's been going on those 1,000 years. You say you fought in countless wars, see all this death. Man, there'd really be a good story there in unpacking. Oh, right, you just gave it to her. And so then he pieces out. I like to think that he saw her and said, oh, you're the one she chose? Take this, I'm peacing out. But, yeah. So here's the thing on story. Here's the thing. I gave it a B. Because, for the most part, it's not a bad story. You're trying to rebuild your family, trying to save the Greek world. But two things hurt it. One is, obviously, the outside Animus stuff is just unnecessary. I really don't care. I almost wish they had just divorced this from Assassin's Creed entirely and just let it be its own thing, because this was a really stellar game, and even story-wise. But just the nonsense of the Animus stuff, it's just unnecessary and even feels foam dead.
It's the stupid prophecy thing for me. It's just this idea. They just totally force this. A lot of this feels forced. A lot of it feels like, I'll be real honest. I didn't give a flying fart about anything outside of the Animus post-Desmond. Okay, Desmond was, while he wasn't the main focus of the Assassin's Creed games, like you focused on Ezio or Connor or Altair or whoever you were playing as, Desmond was still a character. He was still someone I understood. He was hesitant to be an assassin. He wanted to understand his place in the whole affair. You learn a little bit more about his past and about how he grew up, about his hesitancy to join in with the Creed. You understood him. He was a relatable, understandable, respectable character. Now you have this girl who has come out of nowhere. We know next to nothing about her. They spend very little time with her in any game. Most of the game is spent with the historical character, not with her. She has very little connection to any of the historical characters she's connected to, because she's not actually related to them. She's just stealing their DNA. And yet she's the chosen one. She's literally, as they said in the end of the game, you are the one that Pythagoras was talking about.
No, it's like you are literally of prophecy.
You're literally a prophecy. You are the one. What prophecy? Because if you go to the end of the game, you see Pythagoras basically tell you in a vision that by destroying the spoilers, I guess, by destroying the cult of Cosmos, you have destroyed chaos, but the result of destroying chaos is you now have controlling order. What he's basically saying is, by destroying chaos, you've created the Templar Order. You've created a solid, orderly organization that's going to rise up. And somehow she's the one who's going to put an end to it. Why you can't, Alexios?
Well, no, that's the thing. He was originally talking to Alexios or Cassandra, whichever one you were, and so like you're going to be the one to do it, and now he's just like, I've been alive too long. Here, random Layla, that's her name.
Who cares?
Indeed, it was like it's yours now. Anyway, peace out.
There's just nothing to her, and we'll get to that in character. But that ruined a part of it for me. I agree with you that this game's story deserves a B, but I'll give it this one thing. But I also think it's what hurts it a little bit. It's the first Assassin's Creed game where your choices really make a big difference. Mm-hmm. And while that is a good thing, I think that shows a lot of creativity. You kind of see where it's going at the same time. It's a little predictable.
It is predictable and the same thing, and that's why it's like it's not out of the park. And another thing that hurts it, even though I find them hilarious, the Cult of Cosmos are very, very incompetent villains, and it's clearly only via plot that they actually are able to work and coexist. Because for more details, you can watch my Lamentations on the Cult of Cosmos. I know, shameless plug. But the issue is, they clearly don't work well together. The right hand and the left hand don't know what the other's doing. And so the fact that these guys are even working together is hard to believe, because they don't even know who's in charge, because the head of the cult is technically, spoilers, Aspasia. However, she reveals she hasn't been in charge for years. Deimos has been in charge. However, Deimos is actually just supposedly a puppet. So, who's in charge? Is it Cleon of Athens? Is it some crazy lady that raised Deimos? Like, it's not very clear, and I don't know. I feel like there was a bit of a rush production, because I know this came out shortly after Origins, and this was basically a clone of Origins, but just like we said, fixed up. And so I don't think they gave as much thought to the Cult of Cosmos. It's like, we just need a bad guy. And while they are fun to fight and kill, don't get me wrong, it's still like they're not as well written as, say, previous iterations of the Templar organization.
All right, well,
So,
I think that's
safe
fair.
B.
Safe B. All right, let's move on from that. Let's go into history. I'd like to talk history. So, you and I have studied Greek history for a long time.
Yes.
We've studied Greek warfare. We've studied this period of history. We know a fair bit.
We've even dabbled in a good bit of myths.
How would you grade this history?
All right, I'm going to give history here an A. Now,
Okay.
here's the thing. Otherwise, I might actually lower it on a B, because here's the thing. They do a lot of things great, but there's a lot of things that make you cock your eyebrow and go,
I think the big one would be battles.
Okay, so yeah. So let me explain it. Takes place during the Peloponnesian War.
Right.
So you have Athens versus Sparta, and realistically, it shouldn't just be Athens and Sparta. It should be the Delian League, which is headed by Athens, and the Peloponnesian League, headed by Sparta, fighting against each other and so you should see multiple city-states involved. And while you go to these city-states, there's only ever Athenian or Spartan soldiers. And then to make things worse, when you actually get into battles for territory, they are not accurate, because instead of having hoplites and phalanxes clashing into each other and skirmishers,
like battle formations.
yeah, that sort of thing, it's just one big massive brawl. And while fun, and I'll go into greater detail in gameplay, that loses some points in accuracy. And I know why they did it. It's a gameplay decision, because if you're just a one guy in a phalanx, it's not as entertaining to play. So I get why they did what they did, but it still loses a little bit of... Also, there were some other things I noticed about that were a little bit inaccurate. Like, for example, the ancient Greek world is far more progressive than you might expect.
Yeah, go ahead. Bring it up.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We noticed that there were a lot more people of, how we say, African descent that are suddenly running around ancient Greece. And were this a later period, like maybe even Rome, I might hand-wave a little bit. And, for a few mercenaries running around that are from, say, Ethiopia, like, okay, that's fine. But we have people that are claims like, I'm a citizen of Megaris, too. And it's just like, how'd you get here? Because you do not look Greek. But there's that, and there's also the fact that women just suddenly are in a lot more prominent positions than they were. Like, it's one thing to say, like, Aspasia she worked her way through cunning politics and stuff. Like, there's historical backing for that. And also, like, the Hetaeria, like the priestesses of Aphrodite being in a position that they are. Okay, I get
The Oracle
that.
of Delphine.
Yeah, there's things that are like, I get it, but then it's like, I'm a great and powerful pirate queen, and I'm a captain of my own ship, and I'm all this, and like...
No, you aren't.
and also, like, there's things like the Daughters of Artemis, which were running around, and I'm going, not sure about that. That being said, though, you can sort of roll your eyes at that, because they don't often shove it in your face. It's not like, look, you have to do it. Like, oftentimes you can just ignore it, only on a few occasions. But I will also point out that everything else-wise, they do a pretty good job. Even down to historical figures do they get, like, Socrates, I love. Because he does question everything and he irritates people, which is like, okay, that's
Socrates.
And, like, Pericles being very antisocial, even though he's, like, the father of democracy. Again,
very accurate.
Plagues hitting in the middle of the Peloponnesian War, accurate. Both sides are, and also I like this, Sparta nor Athens both are shown like, hey, both sides can be a-holes, both sides actually have good qualities.
Well, the funny thing is, did they ever even, and we don't need to go into it right here unless someone really wants to know, do they even go into, in the game, the background behind the Peloponnesian War, why it's happening? Or is it just, we're Sparta and Athens, we're going to fight?
If you want to get into the backstory of it, you have to do digging. It doesn't automatically show it.
And here's the thing, I don't mind that, but I think it would have been better if they gave some kind of backdrop a little bit more clearly. Because otherwise, it's just like, oh, it's Sparta and Athens fighting. Okay.
Because naturally. But the thing is, they do actually reference it, because when you go to the island of Delos, which is where the Delian League is formed, they sort of explain how Athens sort of got a little bit too big for its britches and that sort of evolved anything. The problem is, they want to focus on that the war was sort of sparked off by the cult, rather than actually things going out, which I guess, sure, why not?
Sure. But in terms of history, I think the best thing about it, because we need to move on, best thing about it is you have brought up how museum mode has been very useful for you.
Otherwise this would be a B for a lot of the inaccuracies here, just for standard, but I think it bumps it up to an A, just because museum mode is beautiful for like, oh, I didn't like how the battles were portrayed. Well, we're going to have Leonidas himself tell you what actually happened at Thermopylae, and show you by blocks how the formations actually operated. Like, okay, that's nice. Yeah, and just going around. I have actually, when I used to teach world history, I actually used museum mode when I was in my ancient Greek unit, and to help my students understand. Did they care? No, but it was an interesting tool that can be used, and it's a good, and I like it as an educational tool, so we're giving it a solid A.
All right, I think that's fair. All right, so that takes care of story and history. Do you want to move on to gameplay?
Yes, we can move on to gameplay.
All right, so gameplay, I think we can both agree. S tier.
S tier.
This is just a fun gameplay.
This is a great game, gameplay-wise, and I know some people are probably really mad that we would say that, but let me make my case. Thing is, like Origins, the gameplay is more on our RPG style, but it is really, they just really polish it off. And I know a lot of people, the big thing that people are upset with is that you can't just assassinate people like you used to in previous games where you just walk up and be done with it. You actually have to keep track of your gear and stats. And the thing is, if you're doing a good job of keeping track of your gear, making sure you have a good loadout, making sure your weapons are upgraded and up to date, you should still be able to one-shot most enemies and do everything you need to. The stealth in this game is pretty good. Very seldom did I ever get caught and go, there's no way you would have been able to see me. Typically I go, crap, I didn't notice you were there.
Right.
Just stealth is fun. Running around shivving people in the back is fun. Combat is fun. And here's the thing. It's not like, say, in the early days of Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed 2, where you can just counter-kill your way into oblivion and no one can touch you. If multiple opponents are coming at you, you can beat them, but you're going to have to be clever about it, and you may have to go, okay, I'm going to run away, hide, and then come back and start taking you out, defeat in detail style. The system is fun. There's a lot of different weapons to choose from and abilities to upgrade.
So many weapons.
Yeah, there's ways to... You have a unique playstyle. If you want to go around and run around and just go around and hoplite smash,
literally,
you can do that. If you want to get a little fantastical and ride a flaming horse, you can. If you want to set your mace on fire and hit them with Sauron's mace, you can.
You want to fire poison arrows, like you can. You want to rain arrows down from the sky, you can. Using your eagle to search out targets, like
you can. If you want to have Icaros, your eagle, harass people, you can. There is so much to do. I will say, I wish they buffed bows a little bit more, because sometimes, like, people get upset, like, hey, you can't stab someone one thing. Like, that's what you're upset at? I'm upset that I can't headshot a guy most times.
Yeah.
But thing is, if you really juice the bow, you can get some amazing results. But also, sort of like how Assassin's Creed 3 sort of introduced naval combat, but didn't quite perfect it till 4 came around. Just like Origin said, hey, look, we have Navy again. Or you're just like, not a big fan. Here, they polish it up. It's not as fun as 4, because you don't have cannons and all that. But let me tell you, there's a special feeling when you actually successfully break through another ship just by ramming through it. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of fun. You get to do boarding actions. If you want to go full pirate, you can. And also, speaking of which, if you start getting caught on things, they don't bother telling you, hey, Alexios or Cassandra never killed innocents. If you want to kill innocents, you 110% can. But there are consequences for actions. If you get caught doing crimes or killing or anything like that, you're going to start racking up a bounty, and eventually bounty hunters will be sent after you, and you yourself are a bounty hunter, which is a great opportunity for loot. Because here's the thing. Some people find the bounty hunting system a little irritating. I love it, because it adds a little bit of challenge to some missions. And not to mention, if you're a little like, I can't be bothered to deal with you, you can just pay off the bounty. Or you can go find the guy that hired you out and go, all right, you want to put a price on my life, I'm taking yours.
Well, I agree with all that. I think that we've actually used the bounty hunter system you've used it to help you out of some difficult boss battles.
Oh, yes. So there's several side that's another great thing about gameplay. You will never be bored.
I want to talk about that in just a minute.
All right, but thing is, like, there's one quest line, like, where you have to fight boss animals for the Daughters of Artemis to get the Artemis gear, which is good gear. And you have to hunt down sort of like, not mythical, but sort of like very legendary animals. And most of them aren't too, like, you can deal with them relatively easily. But there's 2 that drive me absolutely insane, and most people would say, both of which are giant boars. One I call Porkins the Unholy, because he just farts everywhere, and which poisons you. And he's a real pain to deal with. And the other one is the first one they send you to fight, which we call the pig missile, because he just calls other pigs in to just rocket themselves at you, and you have to deal with them as best you can. Now, the thing is, for one of them, I decided to get a little creative with it, And by creative, I mean I looked up how to do it online. But I was able to exploit the bounty hunting system by getting several bounty hunters to get mad at me and start chasing me, and so I led them right into this thing's lair, and they started fighting while I was just firing. I was at the board going, oh, thank you guys, thank you so much. And then afterwards they turned out, like the one that was left alive was like, I'm coming for you. And I'm just like, okay. And then I killed him. It was an amazing experience, but also you're like, but I don't want to kill all the bounty hunters. What's wrong with you? But if you don't want to do that, you can also knock them out and recruit them to your ship. That's right, you can recruit people. Now, you can't do as much with them as you could in, say, Brotherhood or Revelations, but they're all pretty much unique. They all have their own fighting style, and they'll help you when you board ships. And so, like, if you knock out a guy that has poison bombs, suddenly when next time you're boarding a ship, you're going to see them throwing poison bombs on the enemy ship, and the best part is when they throw them when you're on their team, they don't affect you. And it's just really great, and you can also use your lieutenants, which is what they're called, to occasionally distract enemies. It's not the most successful strat in the world, but it's really fun to do, because if you see a nice bounty, it's like, I like the cut of your jib, young man. And so you can beat the crap out of them, then knock them out, and instead of doing that, you say, join my crew. Basically get to pull a Luffy. That's pretty fun.
I think, I will say this, I do have one complaint about the gameplay, and then we'll need to move on. And it's not a big thing, it's just, you're right, everywhere you go is some kind of side mission. Everywhere you go, there's always going to be something to do, some kind of quest to do, some kind of action to perform. But there are times I do feel like, those side missions can sometimes be tedious. Like, there are times where I feel like you have to spend, in order to get an audience with Pericles, some of the stuff you have to do is ridiculous. Like changing the name registration for a person living in Athens, or sneaking around and finding flowers for someone, or finding out who released a bunch of snakes on some random guy. Now, some of them can be entertaining, but at the same time, that's like 4 or 5 missions you have to do just to meet one person.
Well, actually, most of those aren't even to meet with Pericles.
Well, my point being, quite often, the system works like this. I want to find Pericles. Well, you better do these 5 things first. I want to meet my mother. Oh, you better do this first. I want to meet the Wolf of Sparta. Well, you better do all this first. And it turns into because if it were just like a battle or hunting a specific guy or getting into a specific fight, maybe that'd be okay. But after a while, it's kind of like, this is long, tedious, and annoying. Be honest, I felt that some of the stuff that you had to do to get the game done could be a bit tedious.
Here and there, but the thing is, most of the times where it's just like, hey, you have to do this before you do it, typically if it's like something silly, like, hey, you got to get the snakes out of this place, you're done, you're in and out in like 2 minutes. You get it done relatively quickly, and sometimes it gives a chance to like actually explore some historical stuff, like the thing you mentioned for Pericles, where you got to go change your name around. It talks about ostracization, where you actually learn how the Athenian process of ostracizing someone comes from. And I personally didn't have a problem with that. It was
until you get caught and you're chased out, and you're chased all around Athens by an army of soldiers, raising your level and then causing a bunch of bounty hunters to come looking for you, which causes you to go running around again, having to pay off your bounty just to get them off your track. Then you have trouble dealing with all the Athenian soldiers. All of that in a 20-minute chase that could have been done in 2 minutes had they not detected you.
Indeed, I didn't have the problem at that mission. That was another mission I had that problem with. But I do know what you're talking about, and that can get irritating, which is why upgrade that stealth stat, boys. But the thing is, there it can be a little bit of tedium to it, but thing is, in comparison to like the past 4 Assassin's Creed games I've played, I will take this over that. Because,
I understand. I'm just saying, we got to point out the flaw where it is.
Oh yeah, there is some flaws, but the thing is, it doesn't detract too much from the enjoyment I had, because sometimes, I kid you not, there was one time it was like a bounty hunter was sent after me, and I was like, oh great, Icarus, who am I doing? That's some nice loot you got there.
Well,
okay.
It's one of those moments where I felt, I almost missed the days of Ezio where if you made an error, it would just desynchronize and you could start over. Rather than just, I've been seen by a guard, now I've been seen by 100 guards, and now I've got to spend the next 30 minutes running and trying to get away from them, and then hope that I can sneak back over and try again.
I don't know. I actually kind of prefer this over the desynchronization, because it's just... Because the only time you really desynchronize in this is if you die.
No,
I mean, and the thing is, if you desynchronize, like, you would have to start back all the way over. But with this, it's like, oh, they found me, but in the initial fight, you take out 4 or 5 of them. Then you bounce out, you come back, and there's now less guards there, so it's easier to sneak back in. So there's pros and cons to it, because it can be frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, okay, now I need to come back and approach this at a different angle.
Now, I understand. I was just adding a little bit of it. I wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
I got you.
Because you've been gushing about it. I wanted to point out something that some people might say.
Indeed.
All right, well, let's move on from that. So we've got a B for story, an A for history, an S for gameplay. That just leaves characters, and I think we both agree that this gets an A from us.
This gets an A. Because I know some people's like, man, Alexios and Cassandra are just bland. Like, you get to choose their dialogue for the most part. Like, why are you choosing the boring options then?
Yeah.
But and I can understand because, like, they have to be sort of like fill a specific role of like go through the character. But even if you look aside from Alexios and stuff, the other character's great. Barnabas is a lot of fun.
He's great.
Herodotus is not only great historical wise, but he's also fun because he and Barnabas actually play off of each other. Because Barnabas is like, I believe every Greek myth ever said, and Herodotus is trying to be a little bit more rational. Not saying he doesn't dismiss it as crazy nonsense, but he's more skeptical, and so they play off of each other. There's actually like a great scene like where you're going by the beach of Marathon, and he's like, this is where Athens defeated the Persians the first time, and he's going, and Barnabas and Alexios are like, what? Yeah, I don't know anything about that. And Barnabas goes, oh, this is the place where that one Greek where that one Greek hero did this, and it's like, oh, I remember that, and he's like, you're both, Herodotus is like, you're both hopeless.
Yeah, I love that.
You probably will.
You have my full attention.
I found the legendary labyrinth near Knossos.
Did you go inside?
I defeated the Minotaur.
That's quite a story. Story? These are the gods we're talking about, Herodotus. Tell me, what did the beast look like? Was he as ruthless as the legends say?
He is. And smelled pretty bad, too.
How could anyone possibly believe?
I ripped out one of his horns.
My gods.
I love Socrates.
I
He's
wish
just so much
And
fun.
the best part is there's a lot of side missions with Socrates. Because Alexios might get irritated with him, but me like, no, Socrates, keep talking. We're having good.
Well, what I like about Socrates is he's very much what I'd expect Socrates to be historically, and he's a lot of fun to talk to. You and I have often discussed, like, what would happen if this Socrates, as we see him here, interacted with, like, say, an Eastern philosopher.
I would love to see like the Buddha and Socrates go at it. That would be a fun conversation.
Well, I mean, he's the guy who gave us the Socratic method, let's be real. But we love, there are a lot of characters that we just really enjoy interacting with. The characters feel fleshed out. Even Alexios and Cassandra, you got to realize, even though you may say, oh, they're bland, there's not a lot to them, remember, they're meant to be characters you choose for. So a lot of this comes down to your personal choice in terms of how they act, how they make their choices, how they do all this stuff. So it really does come down to you in a lot of cases, but I don't think that they're that bland. I think they're still likable. I think there's a lot to really say good about these characters, but now let's talk about where the fault is.
Yeah, so like most of the characters that you interact and work with in Greece, pretty good.
Until
we look outside the anime.
Okay, can I just say this real quick? I have you've probably guessed by now that I cannot stand anything going on outside the Animus at this point. With Desmond Miles, okay, with Desmond. The characters that Desmond interacted with were fleshed out and interesting. You learned about them. You appreciated them. You learned about Desmond. You appreciated him. He became almost as much of an important character as Altair, Ezio, or Connor because you were watching Desmond's progression. He was going through a character arc. But then they killed Desmond. So now we've got to move on to the first-person character you play while going through Abstergo Industries or Abstergo Gaming or whatever, and you're playing the game, I guess, for all these other people, which I guess wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it wasn't great. It wasn't as good as Desmond.
They're just meh.
But now we have this actual character, and is there anything likable about her? Is there any story for her that we can see? Don't tell me, oh, go look at the wiki. I don't give a damn about the wiki. There's nothing about this character that makes me engaged or interested. With Desmond, the very first day, the very first time we see Desmond, we realize he's been kidnapped. That's already intriguing. Why were you kidnapped? Your blood is special. Oh, his blood is special? What's special about it? You have a connection to a long line of assassins. What? That's so sick. Lots of gaming potential from that. And you get to see him and how he doesn't accept this reality. But when he starts to accept it, he realizes he doesn't want to be on the Templar side. You know, that kind of thing. This character, her bloodline's not special. Because she's not, none of these characters that she plays as are actually her ancestors. She joined the Assassins because she used to work for Abstergo, and she was just so damn good at her job, she made her own Animus, which we've talked about before. You spend so little time with her outside of the Animus that you don't really appreciate anything she does.
You wonder, why is she
you even wonder, and you've said this before, we wonder, why is she here? The only reason they have a person outside the Animus is to remind you, oh, by the way, this is Assassin's Creed, and there's a ongoing war going on outside of the Animus, you know, like, no one cares. Nobody cares. We're not fighting that war. We're not engaging in that war. We're not fighting Templars. We didn't actually fight Templars for real since Assassin's Creed 3, where Desmond fought the Templar Order on occasional outside the Animus missions. But here, it's entirely pointless. But what pisses me off about this, more than anything, what pisses me off was the ending. In Russian Badger's video about Far Cry 5, he said, does a bad ending ruin a good game? I would argue in this case, it almost did for me. It almost did. Granted, you don't have to see this scene. Larky pointed it out. If you basically complete the game and unlock New Game Plus once you reunite your whole family. That's the ticket. But if you choose to go on a little further, you will see this scene. Basically, you play as her, Layla, I think you said her name was?
Yeah, something like that.
She is in the place where Atlantis is meant to be unlocked, and she wants to unlock it because apparently she has Korra syndrome. You know, Korra from The Legend of Korra, where she sees the past about why the spirit portals need to be shut, and her first thought is, I better open that shit up. That's exactly what this is. You spend the whole game learning about why you need to close Atlantis, and then the first thing she does is open Sesame. Like, she's that level of bitch. But, no, hold on. And then while she's looking for the staff, suddenly Alexios, or Cassandra, whoever, who's lived this whole time, shows up and basically says, I'm here to finish the work I started. I'm here to correct the error. I'm here to fix the problem. And he realizes that you're going to do it, and he says, you're the one that Pythagoras spoke about. You're the one...
Well, not really Pythagoras, of Althea or whatever.
No, he mentions Pythagoras.
Oh, okay.
I remembered. I was shocked by it. But he's basically like, you're the child of prophecy. You're the one who's going to save the day. You're the one... I would not care about this if I knew a damn thing about you that made me engage to you. What about you? She's not fought anyone. She's not killed anyone.
Oh, no, she has. She did in Origins.
Oh, anyone important, I'd say.
And just some random grunts.
Like, she gives so little. She gives so little, and yet we're expected to believe this Mary Sue bitch is the new child of prophecy. Why couldn't it have been Desmond? Why wasn't Desmond the child of prophecy? He's the one with the unique bloodline. But no, it's this girl who doesn't even have a unique bloodline. She's just Mary Sue.
There.
She was so bad. I debated dropping this to a B. She was, and you know what? And you might say she was barely in it. You're right. She was barely in it. So why is Alexios? And that's what pisses me off. Alexios is the character we played as, the character we followed, the character whose decisions we cared about and thought were relevant. This is the character we became invested in. We loved, we enjoyed, we felt passion for. And now, out of nowhere, walks up to this girl we barely know and barely care about and says, I'm the one who made mistakes. You're the one who's going to correct them. You're the one the prophecy spoke of. You're the one who's going to save the world. I've been in too many wars and seen too much. I want to die. You're going to be the one to carry everything on. And all I can say to that is, F that. My question is, Alexios, if you realized at some point along the way that what you did was wrong or what you did wasn't adequate and you need to fix it, why don't you fix it? Why do you need to pass the staff on to someone else? Oh, because he said he's been in too many wars, he's tired. Sure didn't stop him from living for a few thousand years. Like, sure didn't stop him from enduring that long.
Yeah, because he's been around for 2,000 plus years, so, you know. Man, seems some stuff that might be interesting, but another thing I have to point out here is, we are still keeping it A just because, thankfully, you can pretty much ignore what goes on. Like, literally the first time you jump out of the animus, you can jump right back in.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, she's back. I don't care. Get back in that machine, young lady. Okay. But another thing that I find, for so we're talking about things that personally irritate us. If you, as you watch the trailer and it's like, Alexios is who they sold this game.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Alexios sold is what was sold because they're like, hey, look, don't you want to play as this guy? Isn't he cool? Like, yeah, he is cool. I'd like to play as him. It's like, oh, by the way, you can play as his sister Cassandra instead. Like, oh, sweet, options. But the thing is, they marketed the game with Alexios. Alexios is on the front cover of the box. Everyone knows this story.
He's been on every trailer. He's been on everything.
Yep. Then suddenly, afterwards, Ubisoft goes, by the way, pulled the rug right out from under you. Actually, Cassandra's the canon option.
And they proved this with Valhalla's DLC, where you interact with Cassandra.
And I'm just going, I wish they had done sort of like a Mass Effect or a Dragon Age, where it's just like, oh, hey, whichever one you chose in the previous game is going to be the one you interact with. But it's kind of like, wait, why are you, Ubisoft, why would you throw all this promotional stuff with Alexios? You talk about how important the son is in the trailer, but then you go, oh, psych, by the way, it's just the daughter. In the novelization, it's Cassandra. And the thing is, there's a lot of points in the game where it's like, it makes less sense for Cassandra to be there than, say, Alexios. Like, for example, you go to the Olympics, and you actually have to participate in the Pancratian matches. Women were not allowed to participate. Heck, most women weren't allowed to even watch. And yet they go, yeah, Cassandra, she can just go in. So it doesn't make as much sense, not only narratively, but historically, for Cassandra to be the OG choice. And I don't mind that she's the option that you can play as, because, that's fine. But this bait and switch of like, oh yeah, come for Alexios, psych, it's actually Cassandra, seems a little weird. And I wouldn't mind it so much, but in the next game, they're going to pull the same thing, where it's like, hey, you can play as a female Eivor or a male Eivor. And I'm like, okay, but you've promoted him as a male, you've made a big deal about his voice actor, so naturally the canon option is going to be Shield Maiden. Why do we bother?
Well, and the reason why, if I remember right, the reason why is because they weren't sure that they could sell, the game would do well if it was sold as a female main character. It's what they did with Syndicate, because they originally wanted to make it about a female assassin, but they didn't think that anyone would buy it if it had a female protagonist, so they did it like with both siblings, and now they're doing the same thing here. They're selling it like, oh look, male hero, you want the male hero, right? Psych Center, you thought. Here's the daughter. Here's the sister. She's the one who's the most important. And here's the thing. I want to point this out to Ubisoft. You realize that we can play female main characters, right? What bothers us, or at least the two of us, I can't speak for everyone, what bothers us is dishonesty. If you wanted to sell Odyssey with a female protagonist only, I'd still play it. Lark, I think you'd still play it.
I love me some hoplite action.
Yeah, and if you wanted to sell Valhalla with just a female main character, I'd still play it. Lark, I feel like you'd still play it. I mean, and if you wanted to play for old Syndicate with just a female main character, I'd still try it, I
mean, honestly, if they were going to pick one to be a female, honestly, Valhalla would make the most sense. Heck, you could call it Assassin's Creed Valkyrie. That would make
that would have been so.
That would have made. I would have been like, okay, I get where you're going with that. That's cool.
But here's the thing: you are, and this is going to sound really funny coming from us, but Ubisoft, you come off as real sexist. Like, it comes off as real sexist that you have so little belief in women, so little faith in women, that you have to pull a bait, and so you have to go catfishing. To say, hey, look, here's a guy, you want to play his cool guy, right?
Is this why we couldn't get a Xiao Zhu game? It's because you're sexist.
That's why they took away Xiao Zun, because they didn't think we'd enjoy a game about a female Chinese awesome assassin.
Yep, but thing is, thankfully, that stuff doesn't impact gameplay or actual characterization when you're going through the experience. So if you want to just tune out Ubisoft's poor decision making there,
you can.
You can. That's beautiful. So overall, with all it calculated, this game is, for the first time since Black Flag, we are getting an A-tier game.
Yes, and you know what? I think that it deserves it. I really do. Here's the thing. I couldn't finish playing Odyssey because of other things going on in life. But Odyssey was a game I enjoyed. I liked playing it. It was funny because I play Cassandra, you play Alexios,
Yeah.
and we loved watching the different style of interactions you'd have just because of the difference between playing a female or a male. We loved comparing those. And while I agree with you that Alexios is probably the better option historically,
He has the right level of smart.
I still thought Cassandra did fine.
Oh no, she did fine, but there's certain points where Alexios is doing stuff and I'm like, you cheeky.
Well, like there's someone like for example, one of the opening scenes where you're dealing with the Cyclops and you shove the stone eye up the goat's butt. I don't know why. I feel like Cassandra does that a little better because of the way she's just like.
I don't know the way Alexios does it too. Just like, oh, you want it? Go get it.
Like both of them.
Fat. I mean, big, strong. You really do only have one eye.
My eye. Give it to me. Give it to me, and I won't kill Marcos for having you steal it. Give it to me!
You want it? Go get it.
Both of them do a very.
Honestly, like
Full credit to the voice actors.
The voice actor, both of them, I think, do a very good job as the Eagle Bear, but I think Cassandra just does a better job as Deimos.
Okay, and that's fair, but overall, I agree. I think that this game deserves its A. And here's a funny thing. I find this very funny. A lot of people said that they don't like Odyssey. They've said that it's the worst game, and I go, are we playing the same game?
Have you not played Syndicate?
Like, no, Syndicate, I would argue, is the worst, but
Yeah, that's my point.
but Odyssey, I feel like it gets a bad rep, and I can understand if some people felt robbed again because of Ubisoft's poor marketing, or if they felt like the game just wasn't as good as something like Origins, and I can respect your position. But for me and Lark, as fans of Assassin's Creed, I think we should go ahead and say it. This is Assassin's Creed in the sense that it was made by Ubisoft.
That's
like
there's an Animus. That's it.
That's it. There's no
Assassin's Creed in this. There's no Hidden Blade. There's no Templars. So
the only thing they have are the Isu, which we hate, and an Out of the Animus bit, which we hate. So we can barely call it Assassin's Creed. But in terms of just being a game, it's fun.
It's a fun game. That's the thing. And so if someone's like, I like the game, but it's not an Assassin's Creed game, I 100% understand.
I think what we can say for sure is when we look at the grading of these, quite often you'll notice that games that are higher in the tier list are games that we could, when Lark and I talk about them, we could very easily go back and play. I could go back and play the Altair game. I could go back and play all the Ezio series. I could go back and play Black Flag.
For days.
But I could not go back and play 3. I could not go back and play Unity or Syndicate. I have never touched Origins, but that's not because I don't want to. It's just because other things have been going on. But I could 100% pick up Odyssey and play it again.
Well, actually, that was one of the things, because like going back and playing Origins for the most part, other than that ending, is an enjoyable game. But the problem is, there's a lot of things that aren't as fine-tuned as they are in Odyssey. It was like, well, if I want this experience, I'm going to go play Odyssey.
Right.
I don't know, maybe they went back and remastered Origins.
Who knows? But anyway, I think that about wraps it up. We've been going for a while. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And like I said, we will be doing Valhalla next. And Lark and I will both play it. Well, because it's been a long time since either of us touched it. We didn't have a great experience. Who knows? Maybe it'll be better this time. I doubt it. But
I can't wait to play with children instead of doing assassin things.
We'll get there. Anyway, hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Oh, and to answer the question that's already been asked of us, will we be ranking Mirage? We haven't decided yet. We will think about it.
I'll give it a look over.
We'll talk about it and we'll see what we want to do about that. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the new channel, Raven's Writing Room. It can use all the support you can offer. And leave your comments down below about your thoughts. What do you think of Odyssey? Do you think it's as good as we claim? Do you not? We'd love to hear your thoughts as long as they're respectful. And as always, guys, we will see you in our next video. Take care.
Have a good one, fellas.